Hi friends, welcome to Beautifully Bookish Bethany. Today's video is all about investigating whether we can really trust Kayla from Books and LaLa when she gives us book recommendations. Are they actually good books? Can we trust her reviews? Let's find out. This is the second video in a vlog series where I read books that I've purchased because of other booktubers to see if we can really trust their reviews, trust their taste in books. If you haven't seen the first one where I read books I read because of Angela over at Literature Science Alliance, I will link that up above. But today's video is all about books I bought because of Kayla over at Books and LaLa. I am going to be reading 3 books for this video that I purchased because of seeing Kayla's reviews. The first one is Bunny by Mona Awad. I know that this is a weird book and I have heard really mixed things. People seem to really be into this or really not like it or get it. Kayla loved it, and sometimes we have crossover in weird books that we like, so I was curious and we'll see. So it says it's about a scholarship student in a graduate fiction writing cohort at an elite university in New England, and there's a clique of saccharine yet sinister rich girls who all call each other Bunny and seem to move and speak as one, and then they invite her to join them. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. The next book is a novella from an author I have read other things from and have really liked, but I actually purchased this before reading those other books. This is The Empress of Salt and Fortune by Nevo. This has actually been on my TBR for quite a while, but I bought it after seeing Kayla just rave about it. And I feel like I'm probably gonna love this because I have loved other things that I've read from Nevo since picking this up. This one is not very long. It's a little novella saying it's both feminist and high fantasy. I think it's like storytelling, fable things. I don't really know, honestly, but I've heard the writing is beautiful. I've been wanting to read this for a while and this seemed like a good opportunity. And then the final book is one I'm actually currently reading. This is Reprieve by James Hahn Matson. I had never heard of this book before seeing it on one of LaLa's vlogs, and it sounded right up my alley, so I almost immediately went out and bought it. It says it's a chilling and blisteringly relevant literary novel of social horror centered around a brutal killing that takes place in a full-contact haunted escape room, a provocative exploration of capitalism, hate politics, racial fetishism, and our obsession with fear as entertainment. So I'm like 80-something pages in, and so far I am really liking it. It hasn't gotten so much to the horror thing, but it's sort of building up to it. What I know so far is there's this like extreme haunted house in Nebraska and somebody died, and so we're getting interspersed these clippings from the trial asking the people who were in the room about what happened and why they didn't stop it or why they thought it was just part of the experience. And then we're getting the backstory of different characters, and the characters are really interesting. So I'm super curious to see where this goes. The first one is of a Black teen girl in high school who has recently lost her father due to a car accident, and her mom are going to be moving to Nebraska. She's really into horror movies and she doesn't want to move, but I think she's somehow going to be involved, Kendra. Then we have a gay boy from Thailand who is sort of obsessed with his English teacher, his like American English teacher, and I think is going to try to go to America to track him down. So that could be interesting. And then the last one I've read so far is this hotel manager who lives in Nebraska who starts becoming buddies with the owner of this haunted house and kind of descends into misogyny and ends up losing his wonderful relationship with his girlfriend as a result and starts believing really awful things about women and gender roles and stuff like that. So it's really interesting. I wouldn't call it horror so much so far, but I can see how maybe it'll get to it. The next part I'm getting into I think is going to be about the actual haunted house. So far I'm enjoying it, so we'll see where this goes. So I'll be reading these books over the next few days. I'll check in and let you know what I think, and we'll figure out if we can really trust Kayla from Books and LaLa. So I'm about 150 pages in, and honestly, this haunted house sounds awful and horrifying and nothing I would ever in my life ever do. Like, people are genuinely harmed by it, like electrocuted. I mean, they're not like killed, but still, and like blood on the, it just sounds like my worst nightmare basically. But the book is interesting. I am continuing to enjoy it. I just finished getting stuff together for some videos I need to put up this week, and I need to go eat lunch. It is already 1 o'clock, and I was thinking, because we're reading books recommended by Kayla, why not have lunch like Kayla? You might know that Kayla is a vegetarian, so I am gonna go try out a vegan restaurant in my neighborhood, and I'll take you along with me. I'm also thinking I'll bring along Empress of Salt and Fortune and start that during lunch. So let's see how this goes. Lunch was good and I got quite a bit of reading done. I am halfway through The Empress of Salt and Fortune and it's excellent. I love Nevo's writing so much. And this is an interesting book because it's got a story it's telling, but it also has this framing device, and I really like the way that it's using it. The story itself is about this woman who was this notorious empress who was a political bride, and kind of following her story from the perspective of a servant girl who knew her through her life. The framing device is that she has died, there's a new empress about to be crowned, and Cleric Chi is part of this order that are historians and record keepers, and so they have traveled to the estate where the empress lived while she was in exile, and while there has met Rabbit, who is this kind of handmaiden servant girl who knew the empress, and is spending a few days there cataloging the items in the house that belong to the empress and hearing the stories related to those items from Rabbit. That's kind of the way that this is framed, and it's so good. It's beautiful. I think it's so interesting using objects as the jumping off point for stories. So most of the chapters begin with just basic information about these objects, almost like you would see in a museum listing or something. But then one of the objects will be a core piece of the story, or the part of the story that's being told in that chapter. I just love it. Nevo's writing is lyrical and beautiful. I'm flying through this. I don't think it's going to take me long to finish it. Thoroughly enjoying it. I am also almost 200 pages of the way into Reprieve, and this one I should say I am listening to on audio and reading physically for part of it. It's very good. The haunted house is awful and disturbing, but I think what's being layered into it is that you have these minority characters who are involved in everything that has happened. And, you know, the violence of what's being done in the haunted house takes on a different tone or meaning when you know that it's stuff that's being perpetuated against an Asian character and against a Black character, and tying that into what we know about their lives and the kinds of racism and microaggressions they face in their real lives, especially in Nebraska. And, you know, Nebraska is middle America. It is a Republican state. It's rural. It's predominantly white. I just figured out that this book is set in the 1990s. So particularly for the 1990s, we're seeing this guy who is a transfer student from Thailand who is gay, living in Nebraska and dealing with culture shock and non-acceptance, not only from the general community of students, but even from other gay students who share parts of his identity but are still racist, even though they think that they're not. And like the nuanced depiction of that is really heartbreaking but really good. We also have some interesting complexities with these Black characters and other ways that relationships intersect with race and expectations, and yeah, it's really good. It's really, really good. Is it scary all of the time? No, it kind of intersperses the more actual horror chapters of what's going on in the haunted house with chapters that are more character studies and social commentary. But all that to say, so far so good. We're doing well. I am gonna read a bit more and I will check back in later. Hi friends, it is Tuesday afternoon. I am enjoying a cup of tea and a little bit of quiet before my kids get home. It's been a busy day and we're sort of tag teaming since it is now summer, and none of their activities for the summer have started yet. Shout out to all the other parents out there who are busy with their children since school is out. I know it gets out later than usual in New York, so some of you have been at this for a while. But I did finish both of these books, which is very exciting, so let's talk about them. I finished reading Empress of Salt and Fortune, and I really liked it. I enjoy Nevo's writing. I don't know why, but for some reason I was expecting something more at the end, and that's maybe on me because I feel like I've heard people talk about this where they got to the end and they just had this big emotional reaction. And like there is a little bit of a revelation twist, I guess you could say, towards the end, which was interesting. I just generally like Nevo's writing, and I thought the story was good, was compelling, but it wasn't something where I was like, oh my God, I have so many big feelings and this is a new favorite book for me. So I don't know what that is. Maybe it just hits people differently. Maybe my expectations were too high, but I definitely liked this. It's like a 4.5 star read for me. Not 5 stars, not a new favorite, but very strong for sure. And I would continue on with the series. I think it's a cool concept, having this cleric sort of collecting stories from different places about people. I will say I'm impressed how much story is compressed into not a lot of pages in this. It's interesting, and you really get the entire life of this empress in a lot of ways. And thematically, what I think is interesting about it is the ways that women find power even when they're oppressed. And the empress is so smart and so clever, and is able to work around the restrictions on her life and the people who are trying to keep her down. And I appreciated that because I do think that throughout history, women and people who for whatever reason have been marginalized by society find ways to take back power for themselves. And yeah, I did really like this. I feel like probably 4.5 stars. So it's very good. For some reason, I was expecting more from it than what I got. And again, that might be on me, but I did like this. So far we're doing well. Then we have Reprieve, and oh my gosh, it's so good and so smart and nuanced. It's doing a lot of things, and I just, oh my gosh, it's really good. It's dealing with intersectionality in a way that is so interesting because you have race in the form of anti-Blackness, you have homophobia, you have anti-Asian or anti-international sentiments, you have misogyny, and you get different nuanced versions of white supremacy and misogyny. You get like the nice and polite version that is still patriarchal and fetishizing, which is kind of a trip to read. You also get a more sort of dehumanizing version of it. And one thing that I really appreciate about this book too is it talks about how anti-Blackness also can exist in other person of color communities, because we have a gay Thai guy who sorry, my air conditioner just came on, but we have a gay Thai guy who ends up developing anti-Black sentiments. And that is a real thing that happens too. I think there's sometimes this idea that people of color more broadly are all sort of one community and there's not racism that happens between communities or other forms of oppression that happens between communities, and that simply isn't true. And this book does such a good job of addressing it. Yeah, it's really good. The ending is intense, and like I want to talk about the ending, but it is spoilery. So I won't do that here. I think what I'll do is I'll put some thoughts about the ending in a spoiler section of my Goodreads review. So if you're interested in hearing my thoughts on that, maybe check out my Goodreads review. But this was excellent, and I think might be a new favorite book of the year. I think this might be one that I would give 6 stars to, which for my personal rating scale is favorite of the year. Listen, maybe we can trust Kayla, because I heard her talking about this and I was like, that sounds like it would be up my alley, and lo and behold, hell was it. You know, it's definitely one of those things that is a social horror novel, that there are disturbing horror scenes in it, but it's not the entire book. And so I think for somebody who's going into this expecting a twisty, action-packed horror novel, they're not really going to get what they're looking for, because this is a more literary character study version of that. Like, milder than even Stephen Graham Jones, I guess is what I would say. But man, it was so good and so smart. I feel like this is one that I will probably want to reread at some point and will be thinking about for a while. So yeah, excellent. So far so good, but next up is the real wild card. I'm gonna try reading Bunny, and I know that people are super divided on this book. Everyone says it's weird, but is it good weird or bad weird? I don't know. I will weigh in once I get started on it and check back in to tell you guys how it's going. Good afternoon. I am trying to cool down after some exercise, and I am ready to talk a little bit about Bunny. I am not done with it. I've read, how far did I get? Like, I read about 125 pages, so a little more than a third of the book, and it is weird. It is definitely a weird book. I see what people are saying. It's interesting. It's, in some ways, it's kind of a send-up of MFA programs, which is particularly interesting because Mona Awad has an MFA and has a PhD in English and writing, and so, like, I'm assuming that some of what she's doing in this book was inspired by her time in those programs, and some of the ridiculousness that goes into these academic writing things. And I like, how do I talk about this book without spoiling it? It's, yeah, it's strange. It's sometimes a little bit like a fever dream. I have mixed feelings. We're in the perspective of this woman who is in an MFA program on scholarship, and she is kind of too cool for school. Like, she's a little bit of an outsider. She clearly thinks she's better than other people because she's, like, hipster-ish, like, wears black and has a cool punk rebel friend, and I don't know, and she makes fun of these four women who are in her MFA program who call each other Bunny and are very feminine and, like, are weird with each other, and, like, they are weird, but, like, she's not really better, and we start to unpack some of that. I don't know, it's an interesting book. I do think we've gotten to a point where it's clear that the author is also aware that the perspective character isn't actually any better than the women that she's being so judgmental towards. And I was not sure of that at the beginning. I was like, I don't know how I feel about this, because I don't really like her either, and she seems to think that she's, like, above it all, but is she really? Anyway, I don't know. It's definitely bizarre and violent, but in these weird weird ways. What else can I say about this book? It's interesting because this MFA program, right, some of the types of things you get is elevated lingo that no one maybe really actually knows what it means. Like, people will talk about, like, I love how you're inhabiting the body in the story, and she talks about how she's been keeping track of how many times she's heard somebody in the MFA program use the term the body, or gesturing towards in their criticisms of each other's work and stuff, and you get these brief descriptions of other people's weird sort of experimental stories. Yeah, it's so it's an interesting book. It's very specific to this kind of artsy community, and I do think you see things like this in a lot of academic artsy communities where, you know, it's about the art of what they're doing and you know, not being marketable to mass audiences. That's, like, the worst thing that you could be. Anyway, I don't know how to talk about this book. It's so weird, and I don't want to spoil it for anybody who hasn't read it yet, but it's a trip. Am I liking it? I don't know. I mean, the writing itself is good. It's interesting. It's got interesting ideas. I don't know if I would say I like it, but I don't dislike it. It's an experience. So I will check back in at some point. I'm hoping I can maybe finish this today. The whole book is about 300 pages, so I have less than 200 pages left to go, but it might take me until tomorrow just because it's been so busy having kids home from school, but we have a babysitter tomorrow, so that's good. I'll have a little more time to actually do some work and read. That is my update. I don't know how interesting this vlog is going to be because my life right now is not that interesting. We keep going to the public swimming pool hoping it will be open, but they're still cleaning it. And so I'm like, well, if we actually went swimming, I could like get some footage of that, but like that hasn't happened. Oh, you know what I could do is I could open a box because I have some mail. Not that this is really directly related to the video at all. I don't have any idea what this is. It is a box from Entangled Publishing, so it's a romance, and it has these laugh stickers on it, so I'm guessing it's a comedy? I have no idea what this is, so let's see. Figure out where to open it. Oh, here we go. Okay. It's so hard to open. Oh my gosh. Half the challenge is just figuring out what direction these boxes open. Okay, moment of truth. Oh, paper. Jeez, okay. Cute. Oh, okay. So it's a little pouch that says, "Pretty fly for a cacti." Nice. It is for The Gunslinger's Guide to Avoiding Matrimony. I am actually reading the first book in this series right now that they sent to me like a year ago. I've got to say, I think the move to the cute cacti pouch was a better choice than last time they sent an actual live cactus in the package, which I wasn't expecting, and it poked my finger. It was fine, no big deal, but yeah, good move to have not real cacti for this PR package. I am enjoying the other book. I kind of put it down because I had a readathon to do, but Messy Marriage Mix-Up. It's like a, you know, Western romantic comedy. Thank you, Entangled. That should be fun. All right, I will be back once I have read some more of Bunny, and we'll talk about it to whatever extent I can. Again, it's one that's like difficult to really talk about without spoilers, but it's weird. I finished part 2 of Bunny, and I thought I would do an update before I finish it up. I've got less than 100 pages left. This book is friggin' weird. Like, it's so weird. There is a part of this where the whole thing is written in this like hive mind, and it is bizarre. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about this book. You know, it's one of these things that in some ways it reminds me of Catherine House, which was weird and I loved it. This is weird and I don't know if I like it very much, which is funny because I actually feel like maybe this is more popular than Catherine House. It's very trippy and disorienting sometimes on purpose. I think parts of it are also trying to mirror the writing process, maybe. But there's some really creepy stuff too. I also can't get past, I'm not sure I can get past, is that most of the creepy stuff is hyper feminine, which works in a sense. Think of like the Stepford Wives or something. Like there's definitely a way in which certain versions of the hyper feminine can be creepy and can become about conforming, and I think that's what this book is trying to do. But I think because the main character is sort of the opposite of all of that, I don't know. I don't know. It's a choice, and like I guess I get why the choice. Do I like it though? I don't know. Like I see what the book is doing. I think it's well written. I think it's got some smart things. Am I enjoying it? Not really. So I don't know. We'll see. I'm going to finish the last part of it, part 3, and I will check back in and let y'all know what I think. Good evening. I finished reading Bunny, and I really liked part 3. It significantly increased my enjoyment and appreciation of the book. It was interesting and clever. Again, this is such a hard book to really talk about without spoilers, but part 3 was very good and definitely improved my feelings about this book. I had a hard time with part 2. Yeah, there were some interesting twists. One that I had kind of guessed at, didn't totally get right, but that was interesting. There's a lot of plays on the writing process, and I don't know, I like it. It was very clever. I feel like reading this book has been a little bit of a roller coaster of emotions for me because I've had such mixed feelings, and I think it's just a very different, strange sort of book that maybe is hard to know how to feel about at some points. This is definitely not going to be everybody's cup of tea. It is weird and violent, and you know, I can totally see some people hating it. I didn't hate it, but I also didn't love it. I know Kayla really loved it, and I've seen other people really love it. I don't know. I do like it, and I like what it's doing, even though I struggled through parts of it. What would I rate this? I'm feeling like this is maybe a 3.5-star book for me in terms of enjoyment. I do think it's smart. I do think the writing is good, and I am for sure interested in reading something else from Mona Awad in the future because there is a lot that's very interesting about this, and I could see her writing something that I truly loved, even if this wasn't quite it for me. So wrapping up, I read these 3 books, all things that I picked up because of Kayla's reviews. And you know what? I'm not mad that I read any of them. I think probably my lowest rating is Bunny, but part of that is because I'm just really not sure how to feel about this book. And I do think that in her review, Kayla does a good job of giving you that sense that it's a weird book. It's not going to be everybody's cup of tea. I was just so curious because so many people kept reading it and she loved it so much. And I was like, I want to try it. It is weird. I don't know. I'm gonna have to sit on this. It's one of these ones that will probably stick with me for sure. So that's not nothing. Then we had Empress of Salt and Fortune, which I liked. I didn't love it as much as I was hoping to, but I did really like it. I love Nevo's writing and I'll continue to read it. So I think that was a solid recommendation. And then Reprieve, just excellent. So good. So smart. This is definitely the kind of book where you have to like the project of this. You have to like slower burn literary horror. And I know a lot of horror readers, that's not gonna be their deal. But man, this was good and smart and well written, and I freaking loved it. So overall, I would say that when it comes to weird or horror picks from Kayla, maybe fantasy, which she doesn't read that much of, we have a good bit of overlap in our tastes, like not 1-to-1, and in other genres we don't always overlap, but overall I think this went pretty well. Talk to me in the comments down below. Let me know any of your thoughts on any of the books that I read. Have you read any of these? Do you have different feelings or opinions on them? Let me know. And for your question of the day, tell me about a book that you read because of Kayla at Books and LaLa. Is there a book that you've picked up because you saw her raving about it and you wanted to pick it up? How did that go? Let me know in the comments down below. I will at some point be back with another one of these. It is kind of fun to try reading stuff that I purchased because of another booktuber, and y'all seem to be enjoying them and they're fun to make. So talk to me in the comments down below. If you guys like this video, it does help if you give it a thumbs up. Subscribe if you want to see more. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.